The room fell silent as Commander Rhea Hart stood at the front, facing the assembly of alien officers, each more imposing than the last. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, bore down on her, but Rhea wasn't intimidated. Not anymore. She had seen their kind before, cold, merciless, and above all, arrogant. The kind of beings who believed they could simply erase humanity without so much as breaking a sweat. "You're saying you've never heard of Earth?" The Zavron ambassador, a hulking alien with 4 black eyes, asked, his voice a low rumble. He leaned forward, his massive frame shaking the table with a force that nearly made the holographic projections flicker. "The planet that humiliated the Varknat fleet at the Battle of Eldros? That Earth?" Rhea didn't flinch. "I'm saying that it wasn't until your empire showed up that Earth became worth remembering. And even then, you've only just scratched the surface of what humanity is capable of." The room, filled with alien officials from various species, exchanged wary glances. The Varknat had been one of the most dominant forces in the galaxy until humanity sent them fleeing in a brutal ambush. That, in itself, had been a feat most thought impossible. Yet, to the alien species sitting around her, humanity was still seen as primitive, a flash in the pan of galactic history. They thought humanity couldn't survive without weapons. They were wrong. The silence thickened, a hush of disbelief. The same disbelief that had plagued the aliens since the day humanity fought back. Rhea looked around the room, feeling the weight of their eyes upon her. "So, what's the problem? Why are we still here, negotiating the fate of a species you can't even seem to understand?" The Zorxian fleet commander, a creature covered in sharp, crystalline plating, leaned back in his chair and let out a short, guttural laugh. "You misunderstand, Commander Hart. We have no interest in humanity's survival. But I'm curious, tell me, how exactly do you plan to fight without the weapons we've denied you?" From the back of the room, a chuckle rippled through the silence. Every eye turned toward the source, a young human cadet, barely in his 20s, seated nonchalantly in row 4, his arms crossed and his posture utterly casual. Rhea's heart skipped a beat. There it was. The unspoken rule every soldier knew: don't make a scene in front of the enemy unless you're ready to back it up. "What's so funny?" the Zavron ambassador snapped, his eyes narrowing. The cadet didn't flinch. He merely looked up from his console, a cocky grin playing at the edges of his lips. "You're saying humans can't fight without weapons?" His voice was calm, almost bored. "I beg to differ." Rhea's pulse quickened. Her gaze shifted to the cadet, and she saw the dangerous glint in his eyes. This wasn't just a joke to him. This was a challenge, one that could tip the scales if things went wrong. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath. "Is there a reason you think we can't?" the cadet continued, voice steady and casual, his eyes never leaving the Varknat commander's cold, reptilian gaze. "I mean, if you've got a moment, I could teach you something about human ingenuity." The room was still. Then, the Varknat commander stood, his towering figure making the others around the table shrink back. "Commander," he growled, "if you think that, I think you've underestimated us." The cadet interrupted, his voice surprisingly clear. "I think the human spirit is a weapon stronger than any blaster or bomb you can create." The challenge hung in the air, sharp and dangerous. Rhea's mind raced. The last thing they needed was for this situation to escalate into something uncontrollable. The aliens, especially the Varknat, were on the edge of losing patience. "Lieutenant Evans," Rhea said, her voice firm but trying to maintain control, "this is neither the time nor the place for your theatrics." Evans' grin widened, but he didn't back down. "I don't need weapons to prove a point. I need my hands, my mind, and maybe a good reason to fight. And trust me, we've got plenty of those." Rhea sighed, her hand instinctively reaching for the side of her chair. The room was taut with tension. The cadet had done what no one else would have dared. He had challenged the Varknat in front of their own representatives, and now the aliens were on edge, wondering if humanity had something more than just firepower up their sleeves. "Enough!" the Zorxian commander bellowed, his voice shattering the calm. "You've made your point. Let us see if you have the strength to back it up." Rhea nodded toward the Zorxian. I think it's time for all of us to understand what humans are capable of. Lieutenant Evans, do your thing. Evans didn't hesitate. Without a word, he stood up, his movements smooth and precise, and strode to the center of the room. The aliens watched, confused. Rhea knew they were waiting for something grand to happen, something that would prove the cadet's cocky words weren't empty. What they didn't expect was for him to remove his uniform jacket, revealing the standard-issue combat gloves beneath. With his back to them, Evans took a deep breath, then flexed his fingers, preparing to demonstrate the one weapon humanity had that no one could replicate, its adaptability. The cadet didn't need advanced technology or weapons to win the fight. All he needed was the space to prove that humans could do what others believed was impossible: survive, adapt, and overcome. He was about to show them how. The silence stretched longer than anyone could bear. Then Evans, with a single fluid motion, slammed his fist into the floor beneath him. The ground shook under the force, and a concealed panel in the center of the room popped open with a mechanical hiss. The aliens stared, disbelief etched on their faces. As the panel revealed a hidden compartment, Evans reached into it, retrieving a simple tool, a wrench, no more complex than the ones used by human mechanics on Earth. The display of such simplicity was both absurd and deeply unsettling to the aliens, who had expected something far grander. See, we don't need to conquer the galaxy with weapons, Evans said, his voice low but carrying authority. We just need to know how to fix what's broken. Rhea let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Evans had just shifted the power dynamic in this room, using only his raw confidence and humanity's greatest trait, ingenuity. The aliens stared at him in stunned silence, the gravity of the moment sinking in. Evans met their eyes, his grin widening. And if we don't fix it? We break it. The mess hall was unusually quiet for a place that usually buzzed with chatter and laughter. The tension from the earlier meeting still hung in the air like a thick fog. Rhea sat alone at a table, her hands clasped tightly around a mug of lukewarm coffee. Outside, the stars drifted by, unnoticed by the crew, who were too busy grappling with the unexpected reality of their position. Humanity had survived against impossible odds before, but now, they were facing something far more sinister. She could still hear Evans' words echoing in her mind, asterisk. We don't need to conquer the galaxy with weapons. We just need to know how to fix what's broken. Asterisk. It had been a bold statement, one that had unsettled every alien in the room, but Rhea knew that Evans wasn't just playing to his audience. He truly believed what he said. Her eyes flickered to the viewport. Earth's blue glow was a distant memory now, replaced by the cold, unforgiving vastness of space. They were far from home, and soon, they'd be facing down a fleet that didn't share Evans' ideals. A fleet that intended to wipe them from existence. A soft thud broke her train of thought. Evans appeared in the doorway, his cocky grin still in place, despite the weight of what was to come. The same grin that had both infuriated and amazed the alien representatives just hours earlier. I hope I didn't miss the party, Evans said, sliding into the seat across from Rhea. No party, Rhea muttered. But I could use someone to talk to. Evans raised an eyebrow. Talk? I'm not known for my diplomatic skills. Maybe you should start practicing, Rhea said, staring down at her coffee, her fingers tracing the rim of the mug. This isn't some easy mission. You made a statement, Evans. But if we're going to win this fight, we're going to have to back it up. Don't worry, he said, leaning back in his chair, his smile never faltering. I've got a plan. Rhea looked up sharply. A plan? This isn't some back-alley brawl on Earth, Evans. We're dealing with a fleet that has more firepower than we could even dream of. Them tracks have been conquering galaxies for centuries. What do you think we can do with a wrench? Evans' smile faded slightly, but there was still something in his eyes that didn't match the weight of her words. We've got more than a wrench. We've got ingenuity. I don't care how many ships them tracks have. Humans don't just fight. We survive. That's what makes us dangerous. Rhea narrowed her eyes. There was something compelling about his confidence, something that was beginning to rub off on her. And you think that's enough to hold off an empire? Not just hold them off, Evans replied, leaning forward, his voice dropping to a serious tone. Beat them. Rhea let out a breath. She wasn't sure if Evans was naive or just incredibly determined, but she couldn't deny that there was something about his presence that made her want to believe. Maybe it was the same thing that had gotten humanity this far. Maybe it was their stubborn refusal to lie down and die. I think you're crazy, she said, shaking her head. But crazy might be exactly what we need right now. Evans chuckled, though the humor didn't quite reach his eyes. It's a good kind of crazy. And it's exactly what we've got. He paused, his face hardening as he looked at her. Rhea, I know we're outgunned. We're outmanned. But they've underestimated us. They've underestimated you. Her gaze softened. I'm no hero. Evans leaned forward, his voice low and sincere. No one's asking you to be. But you're one of the best commanders I know. And we're going to need someone like you when the time comes to fight. We're going to need a leader. For a moment, Rhea couldn't speak. His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their implications. She was used to commanding soldiers, organizing defenses, and making tough decisions, but she'd never been asked to inspire. To make the impossible seem achievable. I didn't ask for this, she said quietly. But if I have to lead, I will. Evans nodded, his expression hardening with resolve. Good. Because it's coming, faster than we think. Rhea stood up, straightening her back. Then let's get to work. What's the plan? The command center of the Starbound was a cacophony of data streaming in from every angle: tactical reports, ship statuses, enemy movements. The bridge was alive with the buzzing of officers in action, the quiet hum of the ship's engines echoing through the metal walls. But in the heart of the chaos, Rhea and Evans stood side by side, focused entirely on the war map in front of them. Demtrack's fleet had moved closer. They were almost within striking distance. The alien ships, massive and imposing, dotted the display like a swarm of locusts, closing in on their position. The time to act had come. Rhea's hand hovered over the console as she examined the readouts. Demtrack's fleet had split into two groups, one aiming for a frontal assault, the other flanking them from the rear. She knew the Starbound and its accompanying vessels didn't have the firepower to fight them off in a direct confrontation. But Evans' words still rang in her head. *ingenuity*. What's your plan, Evans? Rhea asked, her voice steady, but tinged with the stress of the moment. Tell me we've got a shot at this. Evans stepped forward, his fingers tapping at the console with practiced precision. We'll bait them. The front group will think we're on the defensive. We'll use the asteroid field as cover, draw them in, and hit them with everything we've got. Meanwhile, we send a small squadron around the back to disable their communications. Rhea's eyebrows shot up. You're not thinking of going in with a small squadron against the rear fleet, are you? Evans gave her a look that could only be described as the type of grin that was usually reserved for high-stakes poker games. You got a better idea? She glanced at the map again, her mind racing. Demtracks might be a superior force in terms of firepower, but they were overconfident. They hadn't expected humans to play this kind of game. And that's exactly what Evans was counting on. You're insane, she said, her lips curving into a smile despite herself. But let's do it. Evans grinned back. That's the spirit. The battle started with a deafening roar. The Starbound fired its first salvo, drawing the attention of Demtrack's front line. Rhea's heart pounded as she watched their movements unfold. Everything was happening at breakneck speed. Demtracks were closing in, but they were playing right into their hands. Evans was right. They were surviving. Every human ship, every soldier, every officer was a testament to what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. It wasn't about weapons. It wasn't about sheer power. It was about adaptability, ingenuity, and the refusal to give up. And now, as the first waves of Demtrack's ships moved into the trap, Rhea knew one thing for certain: humanity wasn't done yet. The space around them was a violent canvas, painted with explosions, laser fire, and the streaks of debris flying through the black void. The Starbound and its fleet of human warships moved with deadly precision, darting in and out of the asteroid field, their sleek forms cutting through the debris like sharks in a bloodied ocean. On the bridge, Rhea Hart stood at the helm, every nerve in her body taut, every decision a matter of life or death. "Evans!" Rhea barked, her voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. "Status report. How are we holding up?" Evans, standing beside her, didn't look up from the tactical readout, his focus unwavering. "We've taken down 2 Mtrax frigates already, but they're starting to adapt. Their rear fleet is closing in faster than we anticipated. If we don't break them soon, we'll be surrounded." Rhea's eyes tracked the positions of the Mtrax ships. They had played their hand perfectly, luring the enemy fleet into the asteroid field, where their superior numbers and size should have been a disadvantage. But now, the Mtrax were adapting to the chaos, utilizing their advanced AI to predict human movements with frightening accuracy. "What's our next move?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Push forward," Evans said simply. "We'll send the Starbound in for a direct assault. If we can break through the rear fleet's command ship, the rest of their forces will scatter." Rhea nodded. They had no choice. The enemy was relentless, and their hold on this battle was slipping by the second. She turned to the comms officer. "Commander, we've got a message from General Trent," the officer said urgently. "It's a priority transmission." Rhea didn't waste a second. "Patch it through." The holographic projection of General Amelia Trent appeared before them, her face grim, but resolute. "Rhea, we've got a situation. The Mtrax fleet's flagship has deployed its heavy artillery. We're not going to be able to hold this position for long." Rhea's stomach twisted. The flagship. It was the heart of the Mtrax force. Without it, their fleet would crumble, but with it, they had the power to wipe out humanity's entire fleet in an instant. She'd been hoping to avoid this scenario, but the time had come to face the inevitable. "General, we're going for the flagship," Rhea said, her voice steady. "We break them now, or we lose everything. Get ready for a full assault." The transmission cut out, and the room fell silent. Rhea's gaze swept over the bridge, meeting the eyes of her crew. These were the moments that defined a leader. No one on this ship had signed up for easy fights. But they had all chosen to fight for a cause greater than themselves. "Evans," Rhea said, turning to the young cadet. "Are you ready?" Evans, his face a mix of determination and the thrill of battle, gave a single nod. "Born ready, Commander." The Starbound surged forward, its engines roaring as the crew pushed the ship to its limits. Laser beams lit up the darkness around them as they sliced through the Mtrax rear fleet with brutal efficiency. The Mtrax ships retaliated, firing back with overwhelming force, but humanity's fleet was fast, agile, and for the first time, unpredictable. As they neared the flagship, the tension in the air was palpable. Rhea's fingers were a blur on the console, issuing commands as the crew followed in perfect synchrony. She could feel the weight of every moment, every decision, but there was no turning back now. "Commander, we're in range," Evans said, his voice tight with excitement. "Prepare for direct assault." Rhea's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The final push. "Fire everything." The Starbound-S cannons lit up in a blinding flash as they unleashed a concentrated barrage of energy at the flagship. The Mtrax ship retaliated with an inferno of laser fire, but the Starbound dodged and weaved, expertly avoiding the blasts as it closed the distance. The Mtrax flagship fired its own devastating weapon, a massive energy pulse that threatened to tear the Starbound apart. Rhea clenched her teeth, gripping the console as the blast hit, sending shockwaves through the ship. The Starbound lurched, but it held together. They weren't out yet. "Shields at 20%, the tactical officer reported. "We can't take another hit like that." But the Starbound was already moving. Rhea could feel the moment slipping away, but she wasn't about to lose. Not now. Not after everything humanity had been through. "Get us inside their defensive perimeter," Rhea ordered. "All power to the engines." With a roar, the Starbound dove toward the Mtrax flagship, using the chaos of the battle to mask their approach. The alien flagship turned to intercept, but it was too late. The human ship had already engaged its final move, a high-speed evasive maneuver designed to get them in close enough to land a decisive blow. "Prepare for impact," Rhea said through gritted teeth. The Starbound collided with Amtrak's flagship, its massive hull grinding against the enemy ship's shields, creating a deafening screech that rang throughout the Starbound's core. The ship's guns fired relentlessly, tearing through the Amtrak's flagship's outer defenses. Explosions rocked both ships as the Starbound's crew fought to keep the ship stable. Rhea was thrown against the console as the ship bucked beneath her, but she didn't let go. She couldn't. The moment had arrived. "Lock onto their power core," she ordered. "Disrupt it. Now." Evans, with a grin of pure adrenaline, pressed the final button. The Starbound's cannons fired one last devastating blast, and Amtrak's flagship's core erupted in a fiery explosion, sending shockwaves through space. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the galaxy's stars seemed to flicker back into view as Amtrak's flagship crumbled, its massive form dissolving into fiery debris. The enemy fleet, now leaderless and disoriented, scattered into the darkness, their resolve shattered by the loss of their command ship. Rhea stood, her chest heaving with the exertion of the fight, but a sense of triumph washed over her. Humanity had done the impossible. They had faced down Amtrak's, an empire that had conquered countless civilizations, and emerged victorious. It wasn't just a battle won. It was a statement. Humanity wasn't just a footnote in galactic history. They were a force to be reckoned with. "Good work, everyone," Rhea said, her voice calm but filled with pride. "We've taken the first step in showing the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of." Evans stood beside her, grinning ear to ear. "Just the beginning, Commander." Rhea smiled. "Let's make sure it stays that way."